3,000 years old, and that it was created obviously by a highly advanced being. I just had it, oh, right here. So that must be, no, that's the tunnel in the Sphinx, I'm pretty sure. I just wanted to show you guys something. Okay, no, the transversal section of the mountain room. I have pictures here laid out of what these rooms look like that I say they have discovered. So this is how it looks. It says, okay, can you guys see that? Why is it always like that when you look on the film? Can't see it, can you? Why? I don't understand. So I guess you can't see it. I apologize. If you guys go check out, maybe I'll try and get it on the video or something like that. But if you guys want to, just follow along. Go to hiddenfromhumanity.com and start at the projection room PDF page. The page would be, yeah, it's the third section down. It breaks it down into sections. The diplomatic tensions was the second one, and then ground penetrating radar was the first. So we got through diplomatic tensions, and it's the projection room. So check it out. Follow along, because it is crazy. Crazy stuff. And if it holds true, I definitely got some pretty crazy revelations to make to you guys, because holy shit. Wild. Wild, wild, wild. Just got to do a little more research on the other end. So, the projection room. All right, this is how they explain it. This is the actual spherical room that was being guarded. So, here I have these excerpts are between, I want to say, an archaeologist and a General Caesar. So, this is how everything went down. So it says, Caesar told me to step forward. The big gallery ended suddenly in a gigantic room inside the mountain. It was about 30 meters high and approximately 100 meters long. So that's significant. That's a pretty good sized room. You know, 100 meters is quite a ways. 300 feet and 90 feet tall. So, wow. Yeah. The projection room was practically enclosed by the energy shield. Had smaller dimensions than those of the mountain room. The energy shield was smaller. So there was a gap, an air gap between the top of the ceiling to the energy shield. It was only about 20 meters high, maybe a touch more. The energy shield's role was to divide the room like a wall for the rest of the cavity in the mountain, and also to protect from exterior or bad influences. Interesting. So maybe, you know, somehow that mountain gets trashed or gets, you know, hit by a nuke or whatever. That energy shield's going to survive, I imagine, which is crazy. So it has only one way of unconditioned access, like a door, right in front of you. So that door would be from the hall, which they said the halls were like marble, polished floor, brand new. They looked brand new, even though they were almost 50,000 years old. I saw a display of 3 huge tunnel entrances, one right in front and the other 2 symmetrically on each side. They were vaguely lit by a green light. From that distance, I could not clearly notice the details, although I saw other devices were around each of the 3 tunnels. Still, I noticed each of the tunnels were guarded by 2 soldiers like at the entrance in the big gallery. Puzzled, I turned toward Caesar. Do you install security systems here too? Why? Where do these tunnels go? This is the area to which you do not have access. This is strictly forbidden, though through the secret protocol signed by the Romanian state and the United States. So the tunnels were inaccessible, signed between the United States and Romania. I can give you some general information about this, but certain things have to remain a secret, at least for some time now. Let's start from here, Caesar said, pointing somewhere at my right. I turned and saw a huge line of T-shaped tables made of stone and lined up against the wall. Following its curve, none of these tablets were shorter than 2 meters high. Or tables, sorry, excuse me. None of these tables were shorter than 2 meters high. So you're talking 6 feet, the tabletop was, as tall as a lot of people. So it's quite high. So then now he starts talking about the transversal section of the mountain room. Different signs of an unknown writing that looked like ancient arrow-headed characters were cut three-dimensionally into the thickness of the tabletop. There was only one such line of signs on each table's width. The writing was complicated, but it also contained general symbols like triangles and circles. Although the signs were not painted, they would still be noticeable due to a slight luminous radiation. Interesting. Differently colored for each table. There were 5 tables on each side of the room. On some of them, I could see different objects of unknown use. They looked like technical tools for scientific use. Several white translucent wires descended from many of them, gathering in rectangular boxes situated outside the table and on the ground. The boxes were made of a shiny silver metal that could not be scratched. Interesting. I tried to move one of them, but it was well too anchored to the ground. The delicate cables were extremely flexible and light, and inside you could see small, bright impulses that would slide along their whole length. 2 of the tables were empty, covered by a thin layer of orange dust. Caesar told me they drew samples from it and that it had been sent for preliminary analysis to the lab inside the base, but they had not received any results. But the real surprise was the distinct element that made the research team give the name projection room to that huge mountain room. When I passed by a table, a holographic projection presenting aspects from a certain scientific domain was simultaneously activated on its surface. Cool. The 3-dimensionally colored images were perfect and very big, almost 2.5 meters high. Wow. So the holograms were, 7-8 feet tall. Crazy stuff. Because the tables were tall, I could not see where the source of the hologram projection was coming from. I found out from Caesar that the rectangular surface of the smooth stone table had a tight opening in the middle that was several centimeters long and parallel to the longest side of the table. The holographic projections appeared from there. Weird. The technology used was great, said Caesar. The projections appeared by themselves, but at the same time, they are interactive and depend on the one who watches them and touches the surface of the table. What? Wild. So depending on who it was, the hologram would actually, almost like AI, I went to a table that had some 3-legged steps brought by the base teams, and I went up a couple of steps until my body was above the table. It was almost 5 meters long and 1.5 meters wide. It was covered by a film made of a glass-like material, which was not transparent but dark. I could see my head and my body reflecting as in a mirror on the surface of that shiny, dark, and blue smoky film. The film was split into several big squares marked by straight horizontal and vertical lines that formed a kind of frame. The rays that formed the hologram went out the central slot in a perfectly coherent beam. Apparently, its domain was biology, as images of plants and animals scrolled in front of my eyes, some of them being totally unknown to me. I slightly touched one of the squares, which was the biggest, and the hologram began presenting me anatomical structure of the human body. Actually, I soon realized it was my body because of a certain mark I had on my arm. Although I was not moving, I saw the holographic images of certain areas of my body spinning continuously and being presented from different angles. If I had lifted the finger off that square, the images of plants and animals would reappear. If I moved the finger inside the square, the image would release the inside of my body, or would read the inside of my body, thus offering the projection of my internal organs. What? According to my finger's position on the surface of the square, I noticed that moving the finger in a certain way magnified the examined area. So a lot like our tablet technology, but way crazier. My amazement was boundless as I zoomed into extremely tiny dimensions, passing over individual cells, their nucleus, and reaching the molecular area. I thought I was dreaming, but I really saw a molecule that was part of my own liver and was shown in a huge dimension. In a few moments, I had gone way beyond even the most dared dreams of the modern scientists. The image presented a kind of cloud of energy that changed its color continuously, probably because of energetic changes that took place in real time. But in its different points, I noticed a kind of condensation. linked by a kind of bridge that vibrated continuously. I thought that maybe those were the molecular chains. When I zoomed into the nuclear area, the image caught one of the atoms, but it became unstable and blocked. I then saw what I thought to be an atom as a vague energy mist with a very small bright center/heart. Amazed, I touched other squares. Each time I touched one, the square lit in orange and signs of the unknown writing appeared inside of it. Excuse me. Fascinated, I went over several squares, watching the incredible projections of life on other celestial bodies. I noticed that if I simultaneously touched two surfaces of two different squares, the holographic image would render a very complex scientific analysis, presenting the DNA molecules of those beings and the compatible possibilities between them. The images were accompanied by sideways vertical lines of that strange writing, which were probably observations, comments, or indications regarding the analysis made. These were dynamic and presented in a series as the possible phases of mixing the two life forms. Wild. In the end, the most probable mutant form appeared as a combination of genetic data. I went downstairs shaking. My mind refused to think coherently. Strange thoughts appeared in my mind like I was being set up or everything was a dream. Realizing what was happening to me, Caesar gradually calmed down on my paranoid tendencies, or clammed down on my paranoid tendencies that had been triggered by the very strong shock I felt as a result of the advanced technology I had accessed in such a very short period of time. After a couple minutes, I recovered. "You can spend years here without getting bored," I exclaimed. "I cannot believe they reached such an advanced technological level. Who are they? You must know." When Caesar answered, he was very serious. "No matter how weird it would seem to you, we have no clue up to this moment. It is as if they wanted to leave us this invaluable treasure, but did not want us to know who they are. The only aspect we can suspect is that they were probably very tall. We cannot otherwise explain the gigantic dimensions of some objects in here. You can be proud, though, that you have been the first to thoroughly investigate the biology table for the last 50,000 years. I was impressed by the crossing method. It is interesting as our researchers have not found the method of simultaneously touching two squares yet." Nice. "It is also true that we had to do a lot of things in a very short period of time. In the end, there have been 5 or 6 days since we got into this room and only 3 days of actual studying. We went further on each side of the room halfway. There were 5 huge tables situated 7 meters away from the energy shield. I passed over each quickly as Caesar told me my presence there was limited. Besides, the fact that I was there was the result of a really special request of General Obadiah that even Caesar could not have made. There were 5 Romanians and 3 Americans in the projection room. The 3 giant tunnels behind the room were each guarded by a pair of soldiers, while 2 officers secured the overall surveillance of the room. The instruction is that they do not touch or move anything when they are alone," Caesar explained to me. "All right, but what are they protecting here? Better said, from whom?" I asked. "This is protocol. In addition, as I told you, there are some elements I cannot tell you, but they are linked to these secure measures." So what he's talking about there may be what I kind of cracked the code of, but I don't know for sure. We'll see. I continued my rapid investigations over each table. There were projections from physics, cosmology, astronomy, architecture, technology, religion, and a domain representing the characteristics of several races of intelligent beings that did not look entirely human. I quickly understood the information was so vast that many groups of researchers needed several years to study it continuously without fear of finishing it. Everything seemed to be a great library of the universe, brilliantly synthesized by an enigmatic civilization that was extremely advanced technically and spiritually. I then went towards the center of the room where a 2.5 meter high kind of platform stood. There were 5 steps to ease the access to its surface. The whole building was made of the same material that could be found in the big gallery. I climbed up the stairs together with Caesar, and we reached a device that looked like a shielded circular cabin that was made of a transparent material. It was 3.5 meters high.